Hey, Site Shedders, let me ask you something. If you could travel the world to amazing locations and do it in a way that you could claim it as a business expense, would that sound like a good idea to you? Well, let me tell you about a little program that we've got running at the Site Shed. Back in 2016, we kicked off our Travel and Learn program, and the first one we did was Ski and Learn in New Zealand. We took a bunch of Site Shed listeners and podcast trade business enthusiasts over to Wanaka, and we skied in the morning. We did a business workshop in the afternoon, and we did that for a week. And only in February of 2018, we did the second one in Hakuba in Japan, where we took a bunch of Site Shed enthusiasts across to Japan, and we skied in the morning, we did a business workshop in the afternoon. And guys, the reason we put this program together is because, we know as hard as business owners, as trade business owners, when you're tied to location, it's very hard to get away to amazing, destinations around the world. And more to the point, when you do want to travel, you often do it in a way that you want to make sure that it's justifiable from a business point of view. So we thought, why not combine the two? Why not make an amazing business experience and an amazing holiday tied into one? So that's what we've done. And these Travel and Learn programs are so fantastic. And you can head across to the siteshed.com/events to check out what's been in the past and what's coming up in the future. But what I want to talk to you today about is the one that's coming up in July, which is the very first Surf and Learn program. And that Surf and Learn program is going to be held in the Maldives. That's right, we're taking a group of Site Shedders over to the Maldives, and we're going to be doing the full boat experience, which is going to be amazing. It's a bucket list item for a lot of people. We've chartered a luxury yacht, and we're going to be spending 7 nights on a yacht, touring around the Maldives, around the atolls there, surfing amazing locations, diving, snorkeling, hanging out, having a great time. And of course, we're going to be running a business workshop in there as well. So you'll be able to invest in your business in a beautiful, beautiful location while sitting on a luxury yacht in the Maldives. So it sounds like a pretty good opportunity, I am sure, to a lot of you guys out there. The caveat is, of course, that we're going to be on a boat, and boats have limited space. As it stands, we only have about 5 spots left. So if it sounds like something you want to do, head across to the siteshed.com/events. And you can navigate towards the Surf and Learn Maldives page there, where you'll be able to see all the information relevant to the trip. And of course, you'll be able to secure your position with a deposit. Anyway, that's all from me. Hopefully I'll see you there. Otherwise, we'll hopefully see you at one of the future events. We're going to be doing a lot of these. So ski surf, ski surf, ski surf. And we may be throwing in a few other ones in between. So that's all from me. There's been a lot of talk in the community of late around innovative ways that you can, position yourself in your market that stands out from your competition. We had a great podcast, not too long ago, actually, with a gentleman in the United States who's got a really creative way that he markets his products and his services to potential customers. And it spurred me to thinking a little bit further around the thinking process behind how to come up with these ideas. So what I've done is I have recorded a conversation here with my colleague and friend, Nils Vesk from Innovation Blueprint. And Nils is a world-class innovation guru. He's been on the show before, actually. We recorded a series all the way back in August of 2016. So for you guys that are the Site Shed enthusiasts, you would have heard that series. It was fantastic. I encourage you to go back and check that out. There'll be links to that within the show notes. However, this conversation went on for a lot longer than our normal podcasts do. So what I've done is I've split it in 2. So this is part 1 of that conversation. If you've got any questions, by all means, please post them wherever you see this across social media or in reply to the email. Nils actually has an event coming up in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. Sorry for all you foreigners. However, that event is going to be an absolute game changer for you guys that are looking at innovative ways to, position yourself in the market. So get along to that. The dates are going to be available on the show notes. I'll also be posting them in the Facebook community. So if you guys are in there, you'll be able to see that. If you're not in there, get in there because it's awesome. Anyway, this is the first part of that conversation. So enjoy.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the Sideshed podcast. You are joining me, your host, Matt Jones, and today I have with me my friend and colleague, Nils Vesk from Innovation Blueprint. Nils, welcome back.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having us, Matt, and thank you all of your amazing listeners.
No worries, mate. And for the Nils, you have been on the show before. We actually recorded a series together. Oh, gee, when was that? That was going back probably. I have to dig it up here.
A few grey hairs.
Yeah, no kidding. That was way back in, I think, October or August of 2016. So that was the Innovate Your Business series, and I'll post some links to that in the show notes because for the listeners that aren't familiar with Nils, he's an absolute guru when it comes to putting a different spin on the way we typically do things. And the first episode was using innovation to grow your business, and then we did creating innovative business models and processes, and then the third one was creating an innovative customer experience, and they were all very insightful. So I've asked Nils to come back on this show today, guys, because there's been a lot of conversation of late in the space of creative marketing, creative thinking, and just ways that you can re-engage with your customers that sort of breaks the norm and breaks the typical routine of what we may be doing. There was an episode that went live recently, which was called Creative Marketing with Dave Gatto. And Dave Gatto is actually a member of our community in the United States. And he had some really cool initiatives on how to get in front of his customers or potential customers. And so that sort of spurred me on to thinking maybe I should get back in touch with you, Nils, because I know you've certainly got a lot to offer in regard to this sort of thing, if not on like the sort of micro level that a lot of the business listeners out there are, but, you know, on even more of a macro level. I know you work in some big organizations around the world, so I'll be interested to see what you've learned and what experiences you've had between the last time we spoke and where we are today. So
for sure.
I appreciate you're a bit jet lagged too. I know you got in from overseas yesterday, so thanks for setting aside the time to chat.
No problems.
So Nils, let's talk a little bit about, obviously the whole idea around marketing in general is really about promoting a product or a service and getting it in front of the right audience, and then I suppose selling at the end of the day, or setting it up for a sales team to sell. I find that it's over the years become a little bit stagnant, and there's sort of a lot of the marketing that you see is very sort of cookie cutter, same sort of run a Facebook ad, run a Google ad, do this, do that, run a landing page, run an ad to your landing page. Like it all seems like it's the same kind of stuff, and I'm just thinking there's got to be like innovative and creative ways that we can sort of break the routine a little bit here.
Yeah. And I've thought long and hard about this, and when I sort of wrote my most recent book, I kind of was looking at who were some of the world's best innovators in different areas. So, I thought, so who are some of the world's best marketers? And then also in this sort of marketing space, I'd say sort of who are the world's best advertisers? And by looking and working with some of these guys, many of them actually, funnily enough, some of my clients. So I have some giant advertising agencies that actually get me to run innovation programs for them. But when I started to look at, what is it that the really good guys do, is that they almost kind of take a different approach to marketing, because you use the word promotion, and I actually think that the best marketers nowadays have moved from promotion to invitation. So the concept of that is, rather than promote, which is push marketing, which is saying, me shouting out as loud as I can in a room of other people shouting out as loud as they can, look at me, look at me, look at me. Instead of that, what great marketers and advertisers are doing is creating very creative pieces of, whether it's, advertising material or campaigns that I think invite their customers or potential customers to be engaged and invite them to, take up their mind share. And I think that's a really important, just distinction, just to be mindful of, like, if I'm just promoting, I'm shouting just like everyone else. But so how do I go about it? And that sets us up for then, as soon as you start thinking of that differently, you go, oh, okay. So if it's not about promotion, what could it be? It could be about how can we create helpful marketing. So that might be, what are all the ways we can help our potential customer or our existing customers in their day-to-day living? So, it might be around, even though it might sound counterintuitive, we might say, what are all the ways that they can do maintenance around their house if you're a builder? Or what are all the ways they can make sure that their plumbing and pipes stay, perfectly working for the years to come. Alternatively, apart from just giving helpful advice, it might be what's going to grab someone's attention when there's not a lot of attention to look for things because there's just so much information. And if you think about the word marketable or marketing, I often say if it's not remarkable, it's not marketable. And so by that, if you think about what would someone make a remark about, would they make a remark about your flyer or your advertisement? If not, then it's probably not going to have much of an impact. But if you've got a piece of copy or you invite them to something or you create some helpful content for them that's going to help them in a way, and, if I bumped into you, Matt, at a barbecue and I say, oh, hey, I came across this amazing thing that this plumber did for me the other day. He did this, or the builder did this different thing, or they, if it gives us something to talk about, that then is a great indication of some really worthwhile marketing material that you've got.
Yeah.
So I know that's like a very broad principle, but we can kind of break that down. But does that make sense?
Yeah. Does it kind of tie in, Nils, to that conversation around like inbound and outbound sort of messaging? When you're like outbound in the sense that you're sort of out there always chasing the work, whereas the inbound kind of has a different sort of dynamic to it in the sense that you're sort of allowing the work to find you through the cool and engaging things that you're doing.
Yeah, and I think there's like kind of two perspectives to it. One is, by all means, how can we be an inbound marketing? That is, like, we've got some thought leadership on this topic of masonry installation, or we are the thought leaders on pool installation, or we are the thought leaders on, let's say, it might be painting, wet weather painting, and that's obviously going to be people when they're going to be searching for things. That's going to put you up there in terms of searchability, and I know you know so much more about search engine optimization, all that type of stuff. So that's one. But then even if we still want to go with promotion and an outbound type of activity, like pushing some, a commercial or an advertisement or setting things out, we can still be remarkable around that. So what's going to, actually make someone stop and think twice, or, stop and grab someone's attention so they go, wow.
Yeah.
Gee, I hadn't really thought about that before. And I think they've both got their merits, and, different people have different approaches. I mean, personally, my business is pretty much all inbound. But if I ever do outbound stuff, say, for example, for particular events, then I've got to make sure, well, what's going to grab someone's attention so that, they're not just going, oh, here's another noisy man just shouting loud at trying to tell me to go and, go to his event. So there's one really interesting thing that is also worth keeping in mind with both of these, is that there's some of the latest research around what we call motivational focus preferences. This is basically fancy pants way of saying there are different ways that we get motivated. And they've sort of done this, huge study around it, and it was headed up by a great professor at Columbia University in America, who was a head of behavioral sciences there, and she sort of worked out that really the world's sort of, it sounds like a generalization, but this is where it is where the research says that 50% of the population have what's called promotion-focused motivation, and the other 50% have prevention-focused motivation.
Yeah, right.
So you might be trying to push your marketing in a way that goes, special offer, if you buy today, you'll get a free, a 50% off your plumbing installation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's promotion based. And the interesting research shows that only about 50% of the population will respond to that type of motivation. And generally, most of us tend to use that type of motivational copy when we're thinking we're trying to promote something. But the other half of the population are more interested in preventive focused motivation, which is what are all the ways to avoid making mistake or to make sure things don't go wrong. And so they're very, very different. And why that's important is that if you're going to be doing, whether it's a a push out or something that's going to get people to come in, is you want to make sure that you're doing both. Otherwise, you're going to miss out. And like personally, this interesting thing is that if you're, let's say, in your commercial tradie, so you're working more in the commercial area, let's say you're doing, big developments for a developer, or you're doing commercial work, what they've found, the researchers found, is that people will start to default in an organizational perspective to being preventative. So even though personally they might like to take bonuses, because they're playing with lots of money and it might be someone's job, if they get it wrong, they go preventative. So from my own example, I used to always go more from perspective of being promotional, like, look at all the ways you can come up with new ideas, or here's all of the ways you can capitalize on a new market, create new niches. And it wasn't until I kind of came across this research I just went, "Oh, you idiot!"
Yeah, right.
and I just started to go things like, "Don't let your competitor out innovate you, or don't let your competitor steal market share through their innovation." And so it kind of says exactly the same thing, but it just responds so much better for that type of market. So if you're an individual and you're working more to direct customers, then you want to make sure you're doing a bit of both. Mm-hmm. But if you're selling to, say, for example, a maintenance manager or a developer or a superintendent of the site or something, then you want to start to think more about that preventative motivation copy.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That dynamic is the way you communicate is. We've done a couple of episodes in the past on, although it's slightly different but similar in a sense, on profiling and how to ascertain, first of all, your strengths and weaknesses, and then the strengths and weaknesses of, well, I won't say strengths and weaknesses, maybe characteristics is probably a better word, of like your customers and yourself. So then when you're on the communication, when you're starting to communicate with them, you're communicating on similar wavelengths. And I think that kind of ties in a little bit to what you're saying there. Like you've really got to be speaking the person's language in order for them to actually want to respond to it. We interrupt this podcast today to talk to you very quickly about Tradie Web Guy's content creation program. That program has been designed specifically for trade-based organizations as a way that you guys as trade business owners can start creating content that enables you to engage better with your customers and your potential customers. It will enable you to build trust and build rapport, because what you're doing is you're investing in educating them. The biggest problem that we see with our customers today is that they're not regularly updating their websites. And that's a problem because, first of all, the search engines are looking for that. And second of all, potential customers are also looking for it. Tradie Web Guy's content creation program has been specifically designed to help you get regular, relevant content on your website consistently every month. We know that it's hard when you're out there on the tools, and we know that sometimes you don't always have the time to be able to do these things yourself. So we're taking it off your hands for you. It's a service that we're offering for you guys. We want to make sure that you're getting this done because we know how important it is. Anyway, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/content, fill in the form, and one of our representatives will come back to you.
And what I found is, like, if you do it cleverly enough, you can actually, again, so let's say you're doing an email campaign. So you're doing something that's going out to all of your existing customers you've ever had before. Hopefully you've got a good email list there somewhere, and you want to do something around, it's people that had some work done in the last 3 years, and you sort of want to do, let's say I'm a plumber and I talk about pipe maintenance, and this is a good time to, get your pipes cleaned. And so what you could do is you can actually kind of promote the same thing in both languages so that you cover both bases. And they found that if you use preventative on promotion, it doesn't offend them. They're not going to respond as well, but you can have both in there. So you could say, for example, nothing's more annoying than finding your pipes are blocked and the sewage starts to overflow in your da. We've noted that your house has got pipes that range in a 10 to 15 year age, and there's a really good risk of those pipes being blocked up. It'll save you a lot of money in the long run if you get those pipes pre-cleaned and pre-inspected now. So that's the preventative. But then in the tail end of the copy, you could then go into saying something like,
"Call now to save 20%."
Yeah, exactly. So you can kind of do both in there, so that way you're covering both of your bases. But if you were sort of trying to sell that to a maintenance manager or building manager or facilities manager, whatever it might be, then you probably just go with an what are the ways this is going to save you money? It's like, do you know on average it costs a facilities manager, $75,000 to replace burst pipes than it does to to replace them ahead of time.
Yeah.
Don't be the one to have those burst pipes in your facility. And then so you can kind of structure it either way to get the best of it.
It's interesting, actually. That example you used is pretty accurate, because I know a lot of the listeners out there, especially a lot of the plumbers that deal with drain maintenance and block drains and that kind of stuff. That's a pretty common follow-up sequence for them. Like, they'll go and do a block drain at somebody's house, and then they'll set some sort of a reminder in their CRM or project management tool, which basically gets them to re-engage with that customer in 4 months' time before the issue happens again. So it sort of reaches out to them and says, hey, listen, we know you were out there 4 months ago clearing your block drains. Typically speaking, where you live, root infiltration will happen about every 4 months. So in order for us to get out there and make sure your sewer doesn't surcharge into your house again, how would you like us to come out, inspect the drains, clear any blockages, and we'll give you a 20% discount for as a valued customer or something like that. So
yeah.
It's actually a pretty common, pretty clever way as well of getting back into people's houses, because this is one of the biggest problems we find with a lot of our listeners and a lot of our clients out there. They're sort of got that churn and burn mentality, in the sense of, I want more leads, and they tend to neglect the ones they have. And of course, the ones they have are the qualified ones, because they've already pulled their wallet out at some point. So, I think if we can encourage people to sort of get a little bit more proactive in re-engaging with their customers, not only will it save them money on their marketing costs, if that whole churn and burn mentality, but it also improves the relationship, and it makes you look like you actually give a shit when it, pardon the pun.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point there. Is I think sometimes we tend to neglect or forget calculating the lifetime value of the customer.
Yes.
So, okay, let's say I own a house. I'm going to have over, a 20, 30-year lifespan, or whatever it might be. There's probably going to be something that happens every, 3 to 4 years. There might be a renovation, which might need, a whole new vanity and new bathroom put in. If you start to look at, when you sort of turn up to a job, it's kind of like, well, let's think beyond this. What's that? What's that life expectancy? When I work with a client, even though sometimes they'll say, oh, can you come and do a workshop? I'm actually trying to think more of not just a workshop, but what's a 12-month program that's going to, help them and actually give me more life after it. And I'm not always thinking, wow, I could probably do this for another 3 or 4 years with these guys before they get sick of me.
Yeah.
And still in a way that I'm still adding value. If we go back just a bit before, you were talking about, okay, so some people might already be doing this, and this is an important part. So if we are like other people that are going out there and contacting our clients, this is when we want to do something that is going to be remarkable. Because if you've got an inbox that goes, clean your pipes now, you go, oh, really? It's not necessarily the most compelling subject line in your email. So this is where we want to start to think more like an advertising creative. And, you think about, for those that are in Australia, there's a great advertising genius called Todd Sampson. He's been on a few TV shows and things like that. But what creatives do very well is they look at creating a piece of advertising that's going to make someone smile or maybe make them laugh. That is, it's going to disarm them. It might inform them of something that they didn't know. It might provoke you emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
It might involve you in some way, but at the end of the day, it's going to make you think differently about something. And so if you think about those core components and you go, well, what's the subject line that's going to grab someone's attention? And often it's counterintuitive to what you think it is, because we're going to say, saving your pipes, but you might want to make a pun about pipes.
Yeah.
If it's going to a male customer, I'm not going to spell it out, but you can almost make a joke about, your pipe's not working. It's like, forget the Viagra. It's time to get best plumbing in. You know what I mean? Like, that's probably going to make you laugh and think twice about it, and it's more likely for you to go to click on that email and to read it than just go delete.
Mm.
And that's kind of like the cleverness is to, okay, but I'm a plumber or I'm a painter or I'm a builder, but it's going beyond that, going what's gonna grab their attention. So give you an example, we did this little campaign once which went out where we kind of created a poster where we said, thanks for not innovating. And, you know, you go, what? Like, isn't that what you're all about? But then underneath it, we had like this in smaller writing, it said JB and Smith underwriters, business underwriters. Sorry, what are they called? I'm just going to my own ad now. Not underwriters. Insolvency agents.
Mm-hmm.
So for companies that would go bust, you kind of contact them. So kind of at first you go, what? And then you'd see that, it would make you laugh, and then there was a link there to,
right,
you know, to do that would take it there. Yeah. So sometimes it's again, because you got to think about there's so much stuff being put out there. You've got to go, how am I going to stand out? But don't just stand out in a clever way that, you know, makes you think really well. And I mean, I'll give you another example. I was doing some work with pharmacists from the Pharmacy Guild of Australia. And as you can imagine, there's so many choices. There's, you know, all kinds of, there's the major players in pharmacy, and then there's the small ones, and they're all trying to compete with each other. And I remember sharing a very clever piece of copy, which was, it said that they put a little billboard outside of this little pharmacy, and it said, men are a lot like Kleenex tissues, cheap and disposable, you know, something like that. But it was just like, but for you know, every woman just would have had a chuckle and gone, yeah, it would kind of encourage them to think more about that place and to go in there. So it's sort of, yeah, part of the job of good marketing, I think, is to find something that, yeah, people are going to have a bit of a chuckle at. They're going to have give them something to talk about, to share someone, and that way you're grabbing their attention, and they're likely then to take that next step. And then if you back it up then with, okay, this person wants to prevent something happening, this person wants to promote or to get something out of it, what can we do and what can we do to add some value? That there's some of the ways that we can do that.
Yeah. I mean, one of the, I suppose, topics that spurred this conversation was, you know, one of these guys within our community, Dave, he was in a similar boat. He's like, oh man, how do you get in front of these companies like real estate agents and strata partners and that kind of thing? All these guys, they've already got like a long list of service technicians, and you know, many of these guys have had relationships for years and years. And so he went over. He's in the United States, this fellow, but he went up to Walmart and bought a bunch of these little toy dump trucks, and he filled the dump trucks with candy and a little letter on it, and he went and just walked around to the real estate agents, and he just said, "Oh, do you mind if I leave this on your table?" And they were like, "Sure." And so anyway, then he left it on the table, and then he came back like a couple of weeks later, and it's like, oh, just want to refill the candy. And they're like, okay. And he's like, oh, which ones were the favourites? Oh, they didn't like these ones. Okay, we'll fill it with these. And then he filled them up. Then after the second or third time they came in, and they're like, excuse me, what exactly is it that you do? And why do you keep coming in here filling up these candies in this awesome little toy truck? And he reckons within the space of 6 months, he was able to 10x his business just from doing that one little creative thing. Amazing.
Yeah. And there's actually some other stuff that's going on within that little example there, because it's not, one is, okay, it's a dump truck, or, you know, you're putting the things in there, so it's going to grab attention wherever it might be. But for the people that own the businesses where he was putting the dump trucks in, they're going, we've already got these tradies who we've been using for a certain amount of time. We trust them. We've had experiences with them, and we have an expectation of what they're going to do, and we trust how that experience is going to be like. The challenge that we often have when we're going to sell something new is, how can I trust this person? I know recently, you know, I called you up and said, hey, I need a Sparky to do some, who can you recommend? So I was going on a well, I trust you, and you gave me a, you know, good example, and, you know, you sort of suggested someone. When you're trying to sell something new, if you can imagine, let's just say we've got two pillars. One pillar is expectation, and the other pillar is experience. And on the top of that, you've got a plinth, and that plinth is called trust. If you've got a high expectation of someone, but you've got no experience with that person whatsoever, then you're going to have a mismatch. So the pillars are going to be different height, and that plinth is probably going to fall down. What you want to be able to do when you're trying to create some trust with someone is you want to make sure that you're giving them an experience that matches their expectation as quickly as possible. So in the instance of what you were sharing there with that guy who was taking stuff in, they're going, okay, this guy's brought in some stuff with sweets. Oh, he's coming back in again and he's refilling it. Oh, and two, is asking us which would be better. I kind of like the way this person is thinking. You know, I've had 3 experiences with him. I like it. What do you actually do?
Yeah.
Oh, you're a fencing installer. Oh, cool. And so can you see how we don't always have to give something physical, but that could be, if someone asks for a quote, generally what we just do is we can go over there and we do a quote, and then we leave it and then we leave. And it's like, okay, they might have asked two other or three other tradies to do the same thing, and they've got a choice to make. Have I worked with any of them? Maybe, maybe not. So I've got an expectation, but I've got no experience. So if you did a quote, and then the very next day you then emailed through something like 10 ways to pick the best tradie, pick the best plumber or the best whatever it might be, then they're going, oh, wow, this person's sort of adding value to them, and they see the quality of it. And then maybe 2 days later you might go, 5 things to consider in the maintenance of your new bathroom down the line. And then, all right. So they've had an experience, they've had an expectation, they've had an experience, they've created some trust. So then when it comes to making a choice, they're going, well, yeah, these guys haven't gone anywhere near, not that it was, you sent me 2 emails, but this has given me a bit more of an experience of what I expect from a plumber or a tradesperson. I think I'll go with them. And I think, again, just because we think we're in a service industry that, they've got a bias to use us, but we can actually give them a sample of how we do and what we do through some thought leadership by, whether again it might just be photos of jobs that we're, how we tackled difficult jobs. It could be how we save time. There's all kinds of things that you can do that can add value that people will buy into and go, I've got more trust with this person. And that's a really big part of the selling process, which is why, referrals and repeat business is such a, easy thing to do, because people will often, provided you don't stuff up, people are going to probably continue to go with someone that they've experienced before.
Been in scenarios, and I've had clients that have been in scenarios as well where they've made mistakes in business, and the way they handled it was so professional that they still got referrals based off the fact that the customer had never experienced anybody that would, that handled like a mistake so well and so professionally. Everyone makes mistakes.
Something that was just sort of coming to my mind then, Matt, was around, so that chap you were talking about, he targeted some, I think realists or real estate officers. What you might want to do is, and I'm sure you've shared this with your community before, but who might be your influencers? Are your influencers, say, for example, a developer or a developers association? Is it a facilities managers or facilities building association, or are they facilities managers? If you're into the structural work, is it around engineers? Is it around permit givers or approvals or approvers or councils, or is it designers? Is it architects? Is it hardware stores? Is it paint shops? Is it lighting stores? Is it home style? Is it furniture stores? Is it so there's lots of influences, and then you've even got your house proud people, where when you see those immaculate houses, it's kind of like, wow, they're the ones that people will actually more often not go, whoa, wow, who did this for you? Because this looks amazing, or who did that? And often they're the ones that people are sort of giving a social proof by their house and doing that. And that leads us to the other thing, which is social proof, which is the use of testimonials. And I often say, often people go, no one's ever going to write me a testimonial. I said, you don't need it to write. It'd be better just get the video. And, but I don't have a video crew. I said, you don't need a video crew. Just use your crappy smartphone. And I found that, I think some of the research shows that the dodgier
unpolished
the filming quality, the more authentic, exactly, because it's not like, okay, this person's pretending that they liked it and they're getting paid something. Got someone on Fiverr.com to do a pretend testimonial. So there's some ways to do that.
It's funny, and that's pretty common as well. Like, I know when I started the podcast, I was researching different types and different approaches of podcasting, and it was saying the same thing. Like, people typically, like the really, really refined, super edited podcasts typically don't flow quite as well, and like it is quite transparent. When you like from the listener, like often listeners like the idea of someone says something and it's a mistake, and you don't edit it all out because it's kind of funny, and maybe the dog runs in and barks at you or something. Where it's just little things that make it a little bit more real, and a little bit more relatable to the people out there that are actually listening to it.
Yeah, I'm sure most of our listeners would remember the crocodile guy, Steve Irwin, rest in peace. Yeah, so you can use video in so many different ways other than, by all means get a testimonial, but you could do. So imagine I'm a plumber and I'm looking at in search of the clogged pipe, and it's sort of, you can almost film yourself or do
like
it as like a real challenge, and you're covered in, yeah, that's it.
Crikey, I'm covered in crap.
Around, like the trials and tribulations of, yeah. I got this one friend who's sort of a tradie who installs windows. That's all he does. He just does windows, sash windows, timber windows, all that type of stuff there. And he's I think he's got some tweet, I don't know what it's called, winking windows or something like that. But he just has so many stories, and he always takes a photo of the view from the window when it's finished, and it's sort of like this, you get a glimpse of someone else's life from the view from a window, from that type of stuff there. So there's some fun things that you can do. The other thing to do is you can think of, depending on what your tools are or what you're working with, you can think of having a bit of a play around the words that you use. So let's say, for example, if you wanted to grab someone's attention, you could say, let's say I was a builder and I wanted to do something around a campaign around, why you're the best guy for renovations. You could do something, okay, what do I use? I use a hammer, I use screws, I use nails. And you go, okay, screw. Okay, what rhymes with screw, or what's a word for net that rhymes with screw? You might go, well, clueless, screwless, or you might go scrupulous with a screw word in there. Or if you were talking about nuts and bolts, you go, it's like a nut job. Or there's kind of fun little things that you can do there that can create, again, it'll make you laugh, grab your attention, and go, oh, this person's different. I remember I've seen this female locksmith or female tradie, a couple of tradies, and I've seen, on the bumper sticker is, crack, like no more crack, or like no more plumber's crack, and just some little lines. It just makes you laugh, and you go, actually, it's good. It makes you think. Otherwise, you might be quite easy to go, oh, well, okay, that's just another plumber, even though it's female. But then that just, you can kind of see the humour, and it's just going to give you another 20-30% more chance of being memorable, and then also being relevant at the time. So that's kind of part of the problem, or part of the challenge is. That kind of leads me on to, if you're going to create some content, we go, well, what am I going to do? Like, the 10 ways that you can extend the life of a faulty faucet or a faucet. You might go, do I really want to do that? You say, well, do you really want to get called out for a 5-minute job? Wouldn't you rather get called out for a $5,000 job? I think I'd rather get called out for the $5,000 job. And that's going to happen by, saying, hey, we're out to help you. And what are those things to do? So you could go, you just think of your own life, like what is it that, annoys you when something breaks? It might be what to do in case of an emergency if if everything goes out. It could be about how to extend the life of your equipment. It might be around how to do those different, cleaning things. But if you're going to do a message, you want to make sure that it's memorable, meaningful, and relevant. So if you can get all three of those things there, then that's a really strong message. So memorable might be, you put a joke in there, or you might tell a story about, never forget when I got called out to one job and blah, 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 blah happened. And it's kind of like, ha, ha, ha. It was a crazy situation, but how you help them get around, how you fix the job. And here's the lesson, is to make sure this never happens in your life. Rather than doing it this way, do it that way. Or, so you're giving them the advice. That's the sort of the memorable part. The meaningful part then is giving them something that's going to be of value. So it's meaningful that this is going to save you money in the long run, or it's going to save your water bills, or it's going to save your power bills. And then the relevant part might be around how it might be relevant to you individually right now, to your building, or to your house or your apartment. But when you get those three things, memorable, meaningful, and relevant, then it's a really good way to get a message to land home and add value.
And then that, I suppose, dictates across all your collateral, all your messaging, ads, social media, even maybe the way you communicate and talk to your customers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okie dokie. Well, that concludes the first part of this conversation. It did go a little bit longer than we first anticipated. However, that's typically what happens when Nils and I start talking. So I've split it into two just to make it a little bit easier to digest. If you would like some more information, then you can head across to the Facebook community and you can ask the questions in there. Nils is in there. Also, you can stay tuned for next week. So next week, there's going to be the follow-up and the final part of that conversation. He's holding an event in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane on the 31st of May. There's going to be an event in Sydney. On the 1st of June, there's going to be one in Melbourne, and then on the 14th of June, there's going to be one in Brisbane. Ideas with legs /events, and you can enter the coupon code the Site Shed. You'll be able to get a 50% discount on that. I will be going, and it will be fantastic. Nils sure knows how to run a workshop, so make sure you go and check that out. Okay, cool. That's all from me. So stay tuned next week for the second part of this conversation. And otherwise, go get them. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to thesiteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.